child participant on the project.
And again, how old were you again, Andy, when this was happening?
Well, I first teleported to Santa Fe with my father in the 1967-68 time frame, and we know that because when we met with Dr. Agnew at the Los Alamos Labs, he asked my dad how old I was, and we both said simultaneously 6. But then, after a couple more experiences where he took me to project locations, I wasn't officially enrolled in the project until the fall of 1969 when I was 7 going on 8. And then I was in the project for 3 years till age 11. And then my project experiences ended as an official matter, and then we moved to Southern California when I was 11. But let me just say that there were only a couple of events in the future that I was able to identify retrospectively from 40 years out, as an adult, that I know to an historical certainty that the project had knowledge about. And those were, I mentioned the particular presidencies. There was also a discussion of the advent of AIDS, in other words, a sexually transmitted disease that could be lethal. There was a discussion about the Internet, I know, that took place at the dinner table, and somebody was trying to explain to my dad what it was. And then he got up from the table and it said, well, this .com thing still bothers me. I mean, how do we know that doesn't mean that the commies have taken over by then? So they clearly had a knowledge of the advent of the Internet, and just a few events like that, 9/11 I mentioned. But it wasn't as if I was being briefed all the time on what the future held. So the only reason I'm able to historically look back and say, well, these are the presidents they knew about, is because their names came up. And I don't have any discrete memory of somebody after President Obama being president. But I would say that prior to President Obama's election, I did share with some of my research associates, including Alfred Weber, the fact that President Obama would be our next president, because when I met him when we were college students, one of his close associates said that I should be nice to him because he was going to be president of the United States someday. So, and I've correlated that to this whole issue of quantum access. Generally, let me say this, and that is that to skeptics, I would say this: look, between what the American public has been told the U.S. government has achieved, and what it has really achieved, falls everything that falls under the umbrella of official state secrecy. So when somebody like myself comes forward and shares what occurs in that part of the graph between the known and what is unknowable because it remains secret, are all the secrets. And so all I can do is just tell the truth. Hopefully people will see that I am telling the truth, but I can't convince those who would choose not to believe my veracity or the factuality of what I'm articulating. I'm just trying to share what happened so that people can derive an understanding of the fact that 40 years ago in America's defense labs, the time-space age emerged, and very few people were told about it.
Very few. A couple minutes to go. Rebecca in Huffman, Texas. Hey, Rebecca, go ahead.
Great show, as always. I was wondering if the television show Fringe has any basis to Andy's research.
Well, I've heard some reports about elements of Fringe mirroring some of my allegations or some of the facts of my case, and that could just be because these ideas are in the ether right now, like a lot of scientific and parascientific premises. I also did present my story to a number of top television networks back in 2007, and I hope that information from my own account hasn't formed the basis of Fringe or other science fiction shows. So I think that's a question that I wouldn't hazard to try to answer at this time. I have heard that Fringe has described certain things that are very similar to my experiences, and all I can say is I've already presented my account to several leading television networks, and I hope that my facts haven't formed the basis of several of today's.
Maybe the government is putting shows out like Fringe to condition us for the release of this information.
Well, they knew, even going back 40 years ago, that I was going to be launching this truth campaign. In fact, I was persona non grata in the project roughly from the summer of 1971 until I was terminated from the project after the summer of 72. Of course, we had pre-experienced the summer of 73 by accessing it from November of 71. But they've known for 40 years that my personal destiny would involve bringing this information to the attention of the American people. And so it's quite possible that if mass media is being used in that way, that these ideas are now being dropped into science fiction dramas on television to confuse the public about the historicity of my claims.
Right. Even basic cartoons now have got, Earth people going to, like, alien planets, and we're scaring the aliens. So, they're even conditioning the toddlers of this world right now, is what I'm seeing.
Well, apropos of that, all I can say is I'm not involved in any kind of release of this information on behalf of any U.S. government agency. I've been very transparent about the different branches of the intelligence community that I've been attached to in the past as a result of my project experiences. This is an independent whistleblower campaign, and it's an authentic expression of my life experience and a political act that I've undertaken, and I'm not involved in any kind of release of this information on behalf of the government, although I do believe that the government should take responsibility for releasing this information.
Have you ever been accused of being a disinformation specialist or anything like that?
Every day, George. I mean, it's so ironic because, I find myself being able to have the privilege of first being in this project, and then also hopefully my truth campaign will succeed and we'll be able to use teleportation to literally revolutionize transportation on our planet, particularly if President Obama does the right thing and declassifies it during his administration so we can launch that project as soon as possible. But yes, every day I receive emails on either my Mars findings or my Pegasus revelations stating that I'm a disinformation agent, and I really respond that, hey, I'm flattered because my information must be so seamless that you don't trust it. But I am not a disinformation agent. In fact, in my book, I'm going to provide copious factual analysis that I think will convince the fair-minded reader that I'm telling the truth.
Okay, very good indeed. Well, all I know is that you bring together a very fascinating story, Andy, and stay in touch with us in the future, okay?
I will. It's been a privilege to be on your show. I've been a listener, I think, since the very earliest days with Art, and I never thought I would be on. It certainly wasn't something that I visited from the past, back when I was time traveling on Project Pegasus, and it's just been an honor and a privilege to be with you during tonight's show, and hopefully we'll have the impact and be able to get this teleportation capability, wrestle it out of the grips of the defense technical community, and use it to advantage everybody on our planet.
Well, you definitely keep in touch with us, Andy. I appreciate you being on the show. For Dan Galante, Tom Danheiser, Lisa Lyon, Lex Lonehood, Sean Ladesseur, Ross Mitchell, George Knapp, Ian Punnett, and Art Bell, I'm George Norrie. Somewhere out there on Coast to Coast AM. We'll see you on our next edition. Until then, be safe, everyone.